There comes a time in a theorist's life where they make predictions. The culmination of hours of reading voice lines and readables that makes us confident enough to say, I think I know what's going on here. But of course, perusing through the database is just one facet of attempting to predict what sadistic twist Xiaoji is going to torment us with. Because a big part of understanding stories is studying the author and recognizing patterns. And in patch 4.2, it seems that my work has paid off, because I managed to predict this entire story in this video, which is almost as crazy as my viewer poll stream the other day. Yes, I did win the 50-50 this amount of times and pull 5 stars this early, and if you don't believe me, the VOD is up. What's it gonna be? Show me elation. Oh, that's well. Okay, well that's super duper early though. That's super duper early though. Oh, wait a second! But of course, that's not why we're here. As always, we are here to break down the happenings of Planarcadia's Abundance War and analyze the details hidden within it. Because things got complicated and a lot of info was dropped in a story half as long as it normally is. So without further ado, this is the downfall of Full Wish explained. Okay, so the way we're going to do this is the same as always. I'm going to break this story down with less perspective shifts and time jumps to make this all more understandable. Good, good. Alright, so our story begins right after the ending of 4.1 and the Phantom Moon's big announcement, raising the stakes of the games, which tells me that Silver Wolf is going to win because I got a sinking feeling that Aha knows she'll win, and raising the stakes to become the permanent Aeon of Elation would mean absolutely nothing because Wolfie is already standing at the pinnacle of elation. So if she wins, it would be funny because nothing would happen. Or it might push her past level 999, which would be even more elation coded. But that's besides the point. I personally am still rooting for Sunday, but we'll get to Wolfie and that whole debacle later. So we talk to Himiko about the Phantom Moon's announcement and then head back to the Express where we meet Pearl, who pretty much tells us that Full Wish is using her control over the media to run a shameless smear campaign against the Express. Something that gets really annoying later on. And we do ask Pearl if she can pull a classic IPC move and control public opinion, as they always do, but of course the IPC is always useless when we need them the most. Because at that point Full Wish can just play the victim card and say that we are allied with the IPC, that she ends up doing anyway, and gain more sympathy that way. And then Pearl says this.
Clarifying the facts amid a frenzy of public sentiment is like trying to quell boiling water by stirring it. It only fuels the flames.
Which, look, I know what she's trying to say here, but stirring a boiling pot of water, that cools it. In fact, the easiest way to cool a pot of water without just putting ice in it is to pour it from one pot to the other, thereby stirring it. Spoons also work just like when you stir hot tea to cool it down. But of course, what would a clanker know about boiling water? Whatever. Anyway, we also learned more about the Herald of Death, Marcus Antali, because apparently he went crazy after being spoken to by a golden tree, and then he went on a killing spree. And it's this lingering poison from him that Full Wish is using, and it's all related to the abundance. And Himiko did that thing again where she says she isn't sure about if such a tree exists or not, even though she's seen it before. She's been to the Phantom Moon courtyard and seen the ambrosial arbor. It is a painfully obvious golden tree, but we need more info on Full Wish regardless, so we continue looking for our answers at GRAPHIA Academy, where we see Ryusuke again, who tells us that while he was off-world, he did a commission artwork for the Elixir Seekers, an abundance faction. This guy just continues to be suspicious, but he cooperates with us and helps us find more info on Full Wish. So we go down to the archive room where we learn that Full Wish was the star student of GRAPHIA Academy, being involved in multiple programs and winning the Distinguished Student Award 3 years in a row, and post-graduation went to study at the Institute of Cognitive Science, Garden of Botanical Study, aka brain science plant stuff, not at all foreshadowing the boss we'll have to deal with later. And this leads Himiko into asking the real questions. If the happiness surgery was lingering abundance poison from Marcus and Tali, how is the IPC not aware of exactly what Full Wish is doing? And why haven't they stopped her by now? The one faction that covered everything up because they alone know what's going on. But of course, it's the IPC, so that question's kinda moot. It gets way worse later anyway. So Himiko leads us to the cursed trauma room from before with the dead students in it, but Full Wish is there this time. And so is the real Full Wish, who for absolutely no reason basically says, yeah, I haven't moved on from 15 years ago, and I want to make it everyone else's problem. So I'm going to tear open this wound to make it worse. And then she brings out the camera crew after obviously provoking us. And this is where the Full Wish gaslighting campaign begins, and she becomes a villain I hate more than Lygus, purely because of how annoying she is. And yes, I know that's her whole role, but she's just so good at it. Because then she claims to have been given a mask from AHA, announces her entry into the Phantasmoon Games, continues to play the victim, and then challenges us to a debate in her hometown of Seafeld City. And remember, saying things to her is pointless because she'll clip it out of context and then use it to slander us more.
I won't manipulate the Phantasmoon Games.
She quite literally runs the media and has telepathy. She is the gaslighting queen. I'm sorry, Topaz. You have been dethroned as the gaslighting gatekeeper and girl boss. It's Full Wish's throne now. So we reconvene at the Astral Express, where we make the decision that we are going to walk straight into her trap. Because we always do. The raccoon does not concern themselves with traps.
I won't manipulate the Phantasmoon Games.
But first, we need more info on Full Wish, so we contact Sparksy to investigate Full Wish's affiliation with the Masked Fools. And we get her to work for us by offering to give her mask back. So she heads to the tavern, says hi to Giovanni, and her efforts lead her to Fatal Joke, where she uncovers Full Wish's medical records that I'm sure you are all familiar with. Telepathy coming from her interior cingulate cortex, growth in her synesthesia beacon implant site, you all know the deal by now. The only thing that's changed is the name of her ability. It was Happiness Grammar, but now it's Happiness Syntax. You can't fool me, ho-yo, I screenshot these things. But anyway, it turns out that she hated the mask that she got and she wanted to smash it, and when she did, she tore open a portal that people go into and they never come back sane. But Sparksy, being Sparksy, goes in anyway to see a young Full Wish getting her fool's mask shipped to her in the mail, with a note attached to it saying, "The way you cried on TV was truly hilarious." And by this point, I think we know who really sent her this mask, because there is only one guy who thinks mourning is funny, but we'll get to him later. Because after the room shifts into adult Full Wish, she uses her happiness syntax on Sparksy and she nearly loses her mind. But she was able to resist it and she drops the true meaning of elation.
What we masked fools do best is distill pain into the strongest wine and spin despair into the maddest joke.
See what I mean by laughing at the void and enjoying life in the face of inevitable death? It's the same concept. Elation is all about finding joy in spite of pain, but for someone like Full Wish, who is literally diagnosed to not be able to process pain properly, she's incapable of understanding this concept. So she attacks Sparksy, and I think this is the first time someone has ever said the word Honkai in game. Silverwolf says it too, who just happens to be debuting this patch, but that's the first time someone has ever said it in story, and I don't know how to feel about it. That's probably not good going forward. Things are probably going to be getting even darker now, but that's besides the point. After the battle, this peculiar Imaginé shows up and Sparkle reveals herself to help Sparksy fight for her life, proving that Sparksy is still very much Sparkle's slave. And that is the last we hear from these two for a really long time. So we're gonna shift our perspective to our dynamic duo of this patch, Evanescia and Yao Guang, the Hunt Abundance Alliance, who make a truce with each other because both of them do not want the Aeon of Friendly Fire to look at Planarcadia. So they take a walk through Seafeld City, and Yao Guang does a mass divination to see that everyone has a wheel sign over their head. That we later learn is because all of them have had the happiness surgery, which is the implanting of Shuhu's cells into people, making them immortal just like Blade. And there are 200,000 people who already have had this surgery.
I won't manipulate the Phantom Moon Games.
But what makes all of this even worse is that Full Wish isn't even the main supplicant. Shuhu is somehow the supplicant. So everyone who has this tree emanator of abundance's cells in their body is also a supplicant by proxy. Full Wish is just the figurehead. How a near dead and fragmented emanator of abundance got a mask of elation, I have no idea. But this is bad, because this thing has no concept of death. It is just like a Heliobi. Shuhu literally can't die. So we're in trouble. But on a positive note, Yao Guang meets La Mancha here, so that's a long time goal checked off her massive things to do list. But back to the negatives, she met Blade too, and although that's not good, this beef is for another day because both sides have an enemy in Shuhu. So Yao Guang asks Evanescia what her authority is as the so-called arbitrator of the games and what the rules she enforces are. Only for there only to be one rule, and it's that the games must continue. Which, of course, would be Aha's only rule. But through this, we learn about Evanescia's backstory. Apparently she was an elixir seeker who ascended to emanatorhood after devouring the Crimson Moon. I didn't know there was more than one of those. But when Yaosha made her an emanator, she gained eternal life and became part of Yaosha's personal garden. But Aha one day came along and took this branch and put it on Planarcadia, and this branch is Evanescia, which also gives credence to the cake god hypothesis of how Imaginae and the Phantom Moon were created. Remember that whole video? Of course, the story of how Imaginae were created that makes the least amount of sense is the correct one. Anyway, Aha promised to teach Evanescia about true joy and trapped her here as the referee of the Phantom Moon Games. So this is why she said in 4.1 that she couldn't leave this world to travel. She also tells us that the reason why she is here and the games must continue is because she is sealing what is later revealed to be Ouroboros. Meanwhile, Silverwolf meets up with Pearl, who cuts a deal with her, allowing her access into Planarcadia's data. And Pearl continues to not know who she's talking to.
Starting now, user Silverwolf has unrestricted access to the Arcadian internet.
I could have done that myself.
With the precondition that I agree.
Remember, Pearl, Silverwolf did this to Screw'em. I don't think you know who you're talking to. Anyway, through looking at the data, Silverwolf learns that the grand scheme of Full Wish is weird. She is implanting people with Shuhu's cells through the happiness surgery, then using her happiness syntax to broadcast joy. And Shuhu has suffered so much for so long through being on the verge of death that his response to joy is so sensitive that people just lose their minds.
And that's not all. As people transformed, they generated new wish power. It kept snowballing until eventually even those who hadn't had the surgery got assimilated.
I won't manipulate the Phantom Moon Games.
And shortly after, Asat Pramad imprisons Silverwolf, and they have a war of words for a really long time, and Asat Pramad casually drops that the Stonehearts and Arbiter Generals are considered emanators. This is the end of a long time debate, and this is gonna need its own video. And here is where we can finally return to the Trailblazer walking into Full Wish's trap with a full squad of supplicants, plus Dan Heng and Himiko, where we are hit with unending slander from Full Wish, and then the people start turning into abundance zombies called Joy Ascendants. So the race is on to take down Full Wish herself, who never had any intention of debating us at all. She just starts throwing out baseless slander for her followers to eat up, which is way too irritatingly close to how reality works.
A concerned citizen tipped me off. In fact, Urilo 6 became an IPC asset practically the moment it waved goodbye to the Express.
I said that. And as we fight our way through the building, we find Blade, Dan Heng, and a lot of Asat Pramad's minion Imaginae creations, and they knock us onto the back foot until Silverwolf shows up to save the day. Magical Girl Silverwolf transforming into her level 999 form and defeating the minions and sending us on our way, where she stays behind to continue having her aura farming battle with Asat Pramad, who says himself that he isn't even interested in fighting her directly because he knows he would lose. Silverwolf has Lord Ravagers afraid to fight her. Let that sink in. But this does suit this guy perfectly because he's known for not doing anything himself and letting his army do the work for him. So we leave and check back with Sparksy, who has unfortunately nothing of value for us. Poor thing got scared out of her mind begging Sparkle to save her, and she didn't even get any info that we didn't already have. And with that, the final battle commences, where Full Wish reveals her grand motive for this entire undertaking. And it's really sad and really stupid. Because for some reason, when she was younger, she thought the news reporters and producers of her TV shows actually cared about her. And she was shattered by the concept of them using her trauma and genuine tears as content. Then she just became what she is. She crashed out because corpos are corpos, which I kinda can and can't blame her for, because she didn't have parents to tell her that people will just take advantage of you. But then again, you know, she could have, instead of focusing on herself being a victim, actually continued caring about the positive impact she was having on the community. The reasons the producers have for giving you a platform is irrelevant when you get to use the platform to be the shining light of the world. Then when you make it big, you can, I don't know, buy the entire station and make everything as genuine as you want it to be. But no, Full Wish, instead of taking advantage of this golden opportunity, you have to make the change you want to make in the world for everyone's benefit. You have to make a revenge plot and show me just how big your forehead is, because oh my... Is that Android 18? So anyway, she injects herself with Shu-Hu cells and turns into a Poison Ivy boss fight from the Batman Arkham games.
We are in Planarcadia, so we should decide the winner in a Planarcadian way.
And kills the Trailblazer. Then we meet yellow-eyed monster Evanescia, who has some things to say that need a whole video to properly address. We get our glow stick sabers, Evanescia heals us, and we use our Stellaron to channel the wish power of those rooting for us to embrace the path of elation. So we return and beat down Full Wish, but this is not the end, because Shu-Hu is still alive. So Sunday gets his grand redemption moment and channels all of the fears of the Planarcadians, taking all of Shu-Hu's scattered power and putting it into Blade. But when all of this flesh and blood is mixed, it turns into a tree, because again, Shu-Hu is a tree that Silverwolf compresses and puts back into Blade, saving the civilians. But unfortunately, Blade is in terrible shape and on the brink of losing his sanity and turning into Shu-Hu. What we're gonna do for him to save him, we can't be too sure, because for some reason I can't see him dying, obviously. But for now, we can say that Blade is a supplicant for sure, because he is the only face of Shu-Hu. So all of those images of Blade with a mask have now come to the limelight. But this concludes the final battle, and the story ends with us meeting Evanescia one last time for her to directly mention that it was Asat Pramad that attacked Planarcadia all those years ago, which forced GRAPHIA to transform the world into 2D, and that GRAPHIA is somehow still alive. But this is a fake ending, because we get this little fake out happening here, where Kuchiba shows up, don't know where she's been this whole time, to Pearl, and reveals that the remains of Ouroboros are in Planarcadia. This is not a drill, ladies and gentlemen. We have confirmed veracity at long last in this game, and the IPC was hiding it, meaning that they knew this Full Wish scheme, and Pearl made us handle it as if she couldn't control the situation herself, all to distract us from the truth of what is hidden in this world, and probably why Aha wants Evanescia here. The Phantom Moon games have something to do with keeping Ouroboros dead, and Pearl knows this and is keeping this all a secret. Once again, the IPC made us do their dirty work, and they are plotting and scheming in the back, messing around with Aeon's remains. We already know that they want Taziron's remains, because that's how Aventurine got involved with the IPC in the first place.
If your luck holds out, the IPC will dig something up from the golden sands of Ejihazu. Maybe even the Sand King's remains.
And they now want Ouroboros. And that concludes this patch's story, because this is the downfall of Full Wish explained. This story was not nearly as long as the others are. Normally we get around 7 hours of story, but this patch came out so quick you won't hear me complaining. There was a ton of action, it moved really quick, and most of all, it gave us plenty of things to talk about. Because you already know that before we get into theorizing, we gotta recap things so that we are all on the same page. Just like I predicted, Shuhu was the main threat, Asat Pramad got revealed, Sunday got his redemption, Silverwolf carried, and the Trailblazer died again. I think this is the first time all of my predictions actually ended up being right. Even Full Wish's ability stemming from her synesthesia beacon was a prediction of mine. But that Emanators thing, oh boy, that's something we gotta talk about, and soon. What do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace, y'all.